Does
has the
it?
same refractive index.
I told you,
skin.
I learned something new every time I talk to you. I still think it's gross. And I have such a fantastic guest today. I have Bev Sanderson from Maysama. So I'm gonna bring Bev in and let's give her a warm welcome. Hey, Bev. You're doing LED a little bit differently. You are, at least to my knowledge, the first mask company, the first mask developer to include pulsed light. And I think that obviously there are panels that do pulsed light. Your panel does pulsed light. Can you explain to the community what pulsed light even means and why you find value in it and why you think people should be using pulsed LED?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the pulse light came from an early discussion with Andre Sommer, who's one of the leading photobiomodulation scientists. And when we contacted him and explained the work that we were doing with the green rooibos, he said, "Are you using pulse light?" I said, "No." He said, "You should be." I said, "Why?" And they use pulse light in their research, which is looking at anti-cancer drugs. And one of the reasons that he explained to me was that it helps with the uptake of micronutrients that surround the cell, whether that is an anti-cancer drug or whether it's skincare. And I think this is the part that most users relate to best. It's quite simple to understand that when you shine the red light on the cell, that the cytosol, the fluid inside the cell, expands. And in fact, it actually bulges out of the cell. And don't forget that cells have got this lipid membrane, so it's quite hard to get active ingredients into cells. The cell bulges, the water extends beyond that lipid membrane. And then when the light is switched off, so during that dark period, the cell contracts and those micronutrients are sucked into the cells. So you get this breathing action. That's fantastic. One thing we haven't spoken about before, Penn, is, and there's multiple studies on pulse light that show that it outperforms regular red light, so continuous wave red light, in terms of stimulating cells. And the secret behind this is due to the higher peak power of pulse light, but overall not increasing the energy dose. And I think it's probably best to explain that by putting some numbers behind it. So, if we say hypothetically that you're using an LED device and it's delivering continuous wave with 100 milliwatts per centimeter squared. So it's just tracking along nicely, delivering that power. And at the end of the treatment, you'll get 10 joules, let's say. If we take that same device and we switch it to pulse light, the pulse is, by the nature of pulse, it's on and off, on and off. So 50% of the time it's off. But at the end of that treatment, you've still got to deliver 10 joules of energy. So the way that it does that is it doubles the peak power. So rather than 100 milliwatts per centimeter squared, you suddenly get 200. And so it goes back down to 0, and then the pulse comes on, and you're up to 200, down, up to 200. So it goes from 0 to hero, 0 to hero, until the end of the treatment time, the same time, you've got 10 joules. And that higher peak power is what stimulates mitochondria better. It gives you better light penetration, but it gives better biostimulation that then creates more ATP. So that is the secret behind pulse light. It's one aspect of it.
Is it possible to use your serum with another brand of mask until this person can afford to get your mask? Is your serum going to be valuable with somebody else's LED?
Absolutely, it is. Yeah, it's not dependent on our brand, and it's not dependent on pulse, to use the serum. You can absolutely, and it's where we started, Penn, in all fairness, isn't it? We didn't have LED. We entered the LED market later in our evolving brand.
Yes, for sure. And the testing that you decided to do, your third-party testing, you were testing your serum with somebody else's LED to start. So I mean,
we didn't have our own
beginnings.
Equipment.
So the answer is a resounding yes. You absolutely can use Maysama serums or products with other LEDs and vice versa. You can use other products with Maysama LEDs. All of that is true and good. Can you use LED if you are using retinol?
Yes, you can. Yes. I mean, I think you always have to consider how sensitive is your skin. Um, Me personally, I don't use retinol. I use retinaldehyde because I have more sensitive skin.
Mhm.
Do I use it in the same routine as LED? No, I prefer to use LED in the morning and use my retinaldehyde in the evening. Retinaldehyde less than the others, but retinol and tretinoin clearly are going to increase skin sensitivity. And when you're using LED, are you going to get increased microcirculation? Is that going to
Mhm.
increase skin sensitivity? Yes, a little bit. So, if you're on the more sensitive side, you absolutely would want to use them in separate routines. But
Yeah.
you know your
Yeah.
skin. You know your
Yeah.
skin better than
For
anyone.
sure.
And if
Yeah.
you're doing something and it's fine, don't think you've got to go away and suddenly switch it up because, you know, Ben and
Yeah, for sure.
Ben and Bev went, oh, I don't know, you should probably be using that in different routines. If it's working for you and it's not causing any irritation, carry on as you are.
Absolutely. And I would just add to that there for me personally, there's really no world where I want to give up my LED, and there's no world where I'm going to give up vitamin A. So I'm going to
Yeah,
figure that out. So
yeah,
really, I completely agree with you. I feel like you can use your retinoids, whatever version of retinoid works for you at night. And even if you want to use your LED at night, I would just say, okay, then do your LED session, wait a little while, let yours, everything, and then do your nighttime skincare routine if that involves retinoids. I would just never personally use a retinoid right before using LED. Like I would never put any kind of a retinoid on and then put on an LED mask or sit in front of a panel. I
no.
think that is unnecessary. At
I mean,
best, it's
most of
unnecessary.
us, to be fair, have been advised to use, tretinoin, retinol in the evening because it can
Yeah.
increase sensitivity to light. So
Yeah.
most of us are using that in the evening. There is some emerging evidence that states that we actually might get a better result from using red light therapy in the morning. And
Yes.
that comes down
Yes.
to mitochondrial load. And you may have seen
Yeah.
that. I know we mentioned the
Yeah.
eye study before.
Yeah. Mhm.
And somebody pointed out, I think in your comments, that actually, they got a good result when they did it in the morning, not in the afternoon. And that
Yeah.
is absolutely true. And
Yeah.
it doesn't apply 100% of the time. So if you're using red light therapy in the evening, again, please don't think you've got to run away and suddenly, start using it in the morning. There are plenty of studies out there that are using red light therapy at different times of day and getting great outcomes. Just a teeny weeny little bit of evidence,
Yeah.
starting to surface that indicates that mitochondrial load has a bit more capacity in the morning. So
Yeah.
it might be the best time to do it.
It's so interesting. Or if you're like me, you will do a little LED in the morning, do a little LED in the afternoon. You might do a little LED in the night. I'm actually not joking. I'm like,
I know.
okay, I understand the dose situation. I really, really do. But I
Yeah.
love it so much. I feel like LED is one of those modalities that is stunning. I really genuinely love it so much. And so I have to kind of pull myself back. And the only thing that holds me back in the afternoons is that I've got SPF on and I'm like, maybe I shouldn't bother
Yeah,
today,
yeah. But
the
if we miss a
afternoon.
session and we're like, do you know what? I didn't do it yesterday either. And all you've got is the evening.
Yeah,
You're going to do it in the evening.
100%. Let's see what Pat says. She says red light and near infrared. Use both or just red light. She's 71, needs rejuvenation as well as reducing freckles. She's a Fitzpatrick.
Two, I
I'm
think that is.
That must
Two,
be two. Yeah, because I'm
not
like,
11.
for a second there, I'm like, hold on. There is no 11. Okay. Well, I didn't know if maybe it was a 1 with an exclamation point. I'm guessing she's a 2. And she wants
Yeah.
to know what she should use. This is such a fantastic question for you, Bev. So maybe we could go through
Mhm.
because I do know that this was an area of confusion in general because it's
Yeah.
new-ish information to the community. In our video, if you watched our video, we talked about newer information on melasma skin and which wavelengths to use. And it's based off of your Fitzpatrick. Now, if you're not familiar with what Fitzpatrick is, it's basically a scale that is determines where you fall based off of kind of like a quiz. And so if you are a Fitzpatrick 1, you're pale, essentially. If you're Fitzpatrick 6, you're dark, essentially. And then there is a range in between. And there are Fitzpatrick scales. I'll try to find a good one and link it in the description box if you're just curious. It's very, very easy to take the test and figure out which fits you are. Then once you know your fits, then if you are concerned with melasma, this does not necessarily concern people as much if you don't have melasma concerns. Would you agree with that, Bev? You don't have to worry as much about the wavelengths. Yeah. Okay. So once you've determined your fits, and then you also have melasma concerns, Bev, can you explain which wavelengths would work for who and why?
What people need to understand is that we are on a journey as much as you are, so what I would say is don't shoot the messenger. Okay. So when we started, the information that was out there was very much around red and near infrared light being used together was best for brightening, potentially giving better results than using red alone. And then, what was evident was that in Facebook groups, people were coming forward and saying, I'm doing this, but why is my melasma getting worse? I don't understand. We also, we had our extended product trials where we had used red and near infrared light together with the serum, and it supports that we had brightening of skin, significant brightening of the skin. So on that basis, we were saying, yeah, red and near infrared together, great, that's best for brightening. But, we could not ignore, as time went on, we could not ignore anecdotal information that was coming from Facebook groups and our community and PENN's community combined. So, understanding in the earlier, period that near infrared potentially leads to indirect heating of tissue, the putting two and two together, I think the community was saying, well, we think that near infrared is potentially the problem for us, and it's, indirectly heating tissue, and we want to use red only, which is why when we developed the prana mask, we gave the option to use red only. Now, incidentally, the panel gives red and near red only, near infrared only, or the two combined, so you have the the full choice. So it was only more recently, and I'm talking in the last month, where I finally had time to sit down and start doing a deep dive on pigmentation. And from that research, and I mean reading a shed load of papers, I was seeing contradicting information. Sometimes they were saying near infrared light's better. Other times they were saying red light's infrared better, if we're treating pigmentation. Sometimes they were saying the two together. And I had to say, well, I had to really, really interrogate the data. And trust me, when you're reading these papers, it's not always obvious who the group is, who are the participants in this trial. You have to dig really deep to, sometimes it's not mentioned, other times you can glean, are we looking at Fitzpatrick's, the lower end, everybody together, or are we treating darker skin tones? And it was only by reading a lot of papers and starting to, patterns were starting to emerge that I made sense of it. And from that, what we were seeing was that darker skin tones were benefiting from using near infrared light only, and lighter skin tones could most of the time use red and near infrared together. But if they were having, more of an issue with near infrared light because potentially it's leading to some heating, lower layers of skin, they might benefit from using red only. So that was why, as I say, don't shoot the messenger, but we're at this point now where we're saying, actually, potentially there are different protocols depending on your phenotype, depending on your skin tone. So that's where we've got to. So I think, what we can't do at this stage is Maysama cannot look at individuals and say, okay, we recommend you do this, because we're not authorized. We are not authorized to say to you, do this. We are purely sharing information with you, helping you to educate yourselves. If what you're doing is working, please don't change it. If you're using something and it's got red and near infrared light and you're seeing a reduction in your pigmentation, that's fantastic. Stick
Yes.
with it.
Yes.
If you feel that, you know, you've got hyperpigmentation or melasma and you're doing something and it's making it worse, there is some information that you might be able to put to good use.
Yes. Yes. And I do think that this is really important, that really, if you don't have any concerns with melasma, pretty much specifically melasma, then you don't need to get in the weeds of a lot of this. I think that
Yeah,
at that point,
100%.
yeah. So I think that first you need to say, do I have an issue with melasma? It's great to know your Fitzpatrick level. That's always great. That's information that can come in handy for various things, and it's really easy to figure out. So there's that. But beyond that, if you do not have any concerns with melasma, I would not worry as much about, oh, should I only be, I'm a Fitzpatrick this, should I be doing that? You know, I wouldn't
Yeah.
go that far into all of those weeds. I will double down on what you just said. We had a comment, and it might be in here. We had a comment under our video that was like, oh my gosh, I think she was a Fitz too. And she said, I have been using the red and near infrared, and I'm noticing that my melasma is getting lighter. Should I stop? And immediately my first thought was, if you are seeing you're seeing benefits, you're seeing improvement, no, don't
Inject
take
it.
this. You follow what is working for you. That's what's most important, because
Yes.
again, everybody is different. And so I've been really, really careful with the melasma conversation around LED, because the bottom line is, this is, like you just said, Bev, it's a journey. We are learning new things all of the time, and nobody can guarantee to anybody else, nope, it's never going to flare your melasma. Can't do that. Unfortunately, all we can do is take the information, and certainly as we learn new information, try to apply it the best way that we can. And
we're trying to empower you. We're
yes,
giving you information that hopefully
exactly,
you can use.
exactly. I'm going to put this one up because castor oil is all the rage right now.
Yeah.
And they say, what about castor oil with the mask? She saw somebody else using it. And listen, I'm never going to say, because I don't know who the other YouTuber is, but personally, I would not be using castor oil before putting a mask on. Number one, gross. I'm sorry, but I don't think that would, I actually feel like that would be. And I think that there are benefits of castor oil. It's really, really high in ricinoleic acid, which is a really, really a wonderful component of castor oil. But I think that if you love castor oil, you can do your LED and you can put castor oil on afterwards. But Bev, let me know how you feel about it.
Well, I don't know if you ever caught it, Penn, but I made a whole video with Claudia Glows about castor oil. Did you see?
Right, I didn't see it, but I probably should watch it.
Check that one out, because castor oil obviously was just having this moment on YouTube.
Yeah, big time.
We saw lots of TikTokers, Instagrammers, YouTubers all using it, and we're like, why on earth would you use that with your LED?
Right.
And as you know, you give me a question, I have to start, looking under every single stone to sort of try and find the answer. And there may actually be something in it. There may be something in it. The reason being, and we kind of skirt around it because, when the answer to something is not known, the safest thing to say is just don't do it, which is why we kind of say generally generally avoid emollients, anything with oils in, before LED, because potentially it could hinder light penetration. Well, actually, if something has exactly the same refractive index as skin, it actually aids light penetration. And guess what? Castor oil has the same refractive index.
I told you, I learned something new every time I talk to you. I still think it's gross. I don't think I could put castor oil on and then put on a mask. Maybe a panel. And I will say, because I sound like I'm down on castor oil, I'm actually not. I think that ricinoleic acid is fantastic, and it actually has prostaglandin-like effects on the skin. That's why some people think that they might get hair growth, eyelashes, eyebrows. That's also why it can induce labor, because prostaglandins, they have this effect on the body in general. And so castor oil is not, it's not totally woo-woo. I'm not trying to say that at all. for me, but now, Bev, you know that that will be a rabbit hole, because that's kind of interesting to use it. I would not be able to use it with a mask.
Well, the video's already out there. Listen, we're not making another one on that.
I bet. Well, it's really interesting because some brands do make clear silicone masks to use with LED. So it must be that same principle that, it's actually going to, enhance light penetration, obviously. Like, I mean, I'm talking LED makers. And so that's kind of interesting. I would love to hear from the community what they think about castor oil used with an LED mask. If I'm way off base thinking that that's like, I don't know. It almost gives me the heebies to think about putting it on my skin and then putting a mask on.
We're not going to be bringing out a green rooibos castor oil. In fact, I think that was one
castor oil.
And we already have a facial oil.
You chose to not have a mouth cut out and to put LEDs all there. And let me tell you that as I age, along with my hands, my neck, my décolleté, it's like, oh, I have an upper lip. These are all areas that all of a sudden you're like, what the heck is happening there? So tell us a little bit about that design decision, and just tell us about it.
Yeah. I think at the time, I'd say competitor brand had launched a product that was for treating lips, and it's great. But I just thought, I don't know whether I want to be doing a separate treatment. Why can't I just have that in my mask? Why do I have to have this area cut out? Do I ever sit there and realistically drink a cup of tea or drink through a straw, when I'm wearing my LED mask? And I felt that I wasn't doing that. So I felt it was a missed opportunity. Sometimes you have these cutouts and you're thinking, but hang on, I want to treat this area. So by covering it entirely, we don't put blue there. I don't know whether you've noticed, if you put it on the red and blue setting, the magenta setting, it's still red around the lips.
So smart. Yeah. That's awesome. I will say that is one of the best features. And in the last, I don't know, maybe 2 months, maybe a little longer, I've been really consistent with using my zip on the lip program. And I've been pretty consistent with the Maysama. And I have not done the zip for a little while. So my lips are a little bit chapped. But what I noticed from that combination was my actual lips felt healthier than they have in years. Usually I'm just chronically chapped. And I'm thinking it's got to be that consistent use of LED actually on my lip. I mean, it's got to be obviously really good for that tissue. I actually can't even think of another mask off the top of my head that has just that great coverage, because everybody kind of goes, I mean, up until recently, most masks looked like they were of a similar mold. And they were just recreating some of the specs in the mask, and which is fine. It's hard to recreate the wheel. I understand. But you actually, it would appear you did your own thing. I mean, you obviously did your own thing.
But can I just, pay credit to our community, because not everything is my idea. Some things come from, I think that one was, but a lot of the changes that we make, are actually feedback from our community. We need this, or actually this isn't quite right, or blah, blah, blah. So it's a combination of, design innovation from ourselves, but feedback from our wonderful community.
So thankful to everyone who came today to this live. Bev, thank you for taking the time. Thank you for taking a day out of your life when I came to England to film with me. We have more of that content is coming, by the way, to anybody that's watching. Please do watch the video that I put out 2 weeks ago with Bev. There's just some really great information there as well. I'm going to link everything Bev down in the description box. I think you guys should check out her blog. Definitely check out her website, everything, her Instagram. We're going to link all of that. And thank you, Bev, for joining me today and answering all of these questions. And we'll probably do this again, you guys. So leave any additional questions. We'll do our best to answer them. And maybe we'll just get together again before the year's over and have another discussion.
Amazing. Thank you so much for having me, Penn. Thank you.
Thank you. And if you're here on the replay, let us know in the comments, say hello. And thanks again, everybody. I hope you have a really, really wonderful day. Okay. Bye, Bev.
Bye-bye.